The council chamber floated in the space between stars, a massive structure of crystal and light, where representatives from 47 different species gathered to discuss matters of galactic importance. Today, the air hummed with nervous energy, as Ambassador Kelthris stood before the assembled delegates, his 6 limbs trembling slightly despite his efforts to appear calm. Honored members, Kelthris began, his translator device converting his melodic language into something all species could understand. 4,000 years ago, humanity vanished from the galaxy. They left no explanation, no farewell message. They simply withdrew to their home system and went silent. The delegates shifted in their various seats, chairs, and floating platforms. Everyone knew the stories about humans. They were the dangerous ones, the violent species that nearly started the First Galactic War over a simple trade dispute. When they disappeared, most species felt relief rather than concern. 3 days ago, Kelthris continued, our long-range sensors detected something unusual from the Sol system. Energy readings unlike anything we have seen in 4 millennia. The readings suggest massive construction, perhaps even stellar engineering. A Throxian delegate resembling a floating jellyfish made of purple gas pulsed with agitation. Why should we care about humans? They were savages. Let them hide in their corner of space. Kelthris had expected this response. Because, honored delegate, those energy readings suggest technology far beyond our current understanding. If humans have been developing for 4,000 years in isolation, we must know what they have become. Are they a threat? An opportunity? We cannot ignore them any longer. After hours of debate, the council voted to send a diplomatic vessel. Kelthris volunteered to lead the expedition, driven by curiosity rather than fear. He had spent his entire career studying ancient human culture, fascinated by their art, their music, their strange dual nature of creativity and destruction. The journey to Sol took 3 weeks aboard the Harmonious Accord, a ship designed to impress rather than intimidate. Its hull shimmered with peaceful colors, and its weapon systems were ceremonial at best. Kelthris spent the journey reviewing everything known about humanity. They had been loud when they first joined galactic society, bursting into the cosmic community with enthusiasm and aggression in equal measure. They wanted to trade, to explore, to make friends. But they also carried weapons everywhere, maintained massive militaries even in peacetime, and spoke casually about extinction-level conflicts from their own history as if discussing the weather. Other species found them disturbing. How could a species develop space travel while still practicing warfare? Most civilized races abandon violence long before reaching the stars. When the Harmonious Accord finally entered the Sol system, Kelthris understood why the sensors had detected such unusual readings. Earth was transformed beyond recognition. The planet itself looked similar from a distance, still blue and green and beautiful. But surrounding it were layers upon layers of artificial structures. Orbital rings encircled the equator, massive space. Stations dotted the sky, and a partial Dyson swarm hung around the sun. Countless panels collecting energy on a scale that made Kelthris's species look primitive by comparison. By the eternal light, whispered his second officer, a young Valexian named Thress. What have they built? Kelthris tried to hail the structures. Silence. He tried again, using every frequency known to galactic science. Still nothing. For 3 hours, they broadcast messages in every human language recorded in the archives explaining their peaceful intentions. Finally, as Kelthris was considering moving closer, a response came. Not audio, but text, displayed across every screen on the ship simultaneously. Leave. We chose isolation for your protection, not ours. Kelthris felt his heart's race faster. This is Ambassador Kelthris of the Galactic Council. We mean no harm. We only wish to establish diplomatic relations and understand your long silence. Minutes passed. Then another message appeared. You do not understand. We cannot explain without revealing things you are not ready to know. For the safety of all galactic civilizations, we ask you to leave and not return. What could they possibly mean? Thress asked, nervousness evident in his voice. Kelthris considered the message carefully. The words suggested protection, not threat. Humans were warning them away for their own good. But why? What had humanity discovered or become in 4,000 years? "We respect your wishes," Kelthris replied. "But the Council will require some explanation. Can you at least tell us why you withdrew? What are you protecting us from?" The wait this time was longer, nearly an hour. When the response came, it was just 2 words that would haunt Kelthris for months to come. "Ourselves. Mostly." Before Kelthris could respond, another message arrived. "But also something worse. Something we hoped would never wake. If it does, you will need us. Until then, let us remain forgotten." The Harmonious Accord was suddenly surrounded by human ships appearing from nowhere, as if they had been invisible. They were not aggressive, but their presence was clear. The humans were escorting them out of the system. As Earth shrank behind them, Kelthris stared at the data his sensors had collected. Those ships had technology decades, maybe centuries beyond anything the Council possessed. And the way they appeared suggested stealth capabilities that made them essentially undetectable. Humanity had not been idle during their silence. They had been preparing for something. Something they feared more than isolation, more than being forgotten by the galaxy. Kelthris only hoped the Council would listen to his report and take the warning seriously. Because whatever humans were afraid of, whatever they had spent 4,000 years preparing to face, was something the galaxy should fear too. 3 months passed since the Harmonious Accord returned from Sol. Kelthris presented his findings to the Council, warning them that humanity's isolation suggested a threat they were preparing for. The delegates listened politely, then dismissed his concerns as paranoia. After all, the galaxy had enjoyed 4,000 years of peace. What could possibly threaten them now? The Council filed Kelthris's report in the archives, and moved on to more immediate concerns like trade disputes and territorial negotiations. Humanity became a footnote once again, an oddity to discuss at academic gatherings, but nothing more. Then the colonies started going silent. It began in the outer rim, far from the central worlds where Council members lived. Small research stations stopped transmitting. At first, authorities assumed equipment failures or solar flares disrupting communications, but when they sent repair ships to investigate, those ships never returned either. Within 2 weeks, 3 entire colonies had gone dark. Not destroyed in any visible way. When the Council finally sent military vessels to investigate, they found the colonies intact but empty. Buildings stood undamaged, power systems still running, food half-eaten on tables. But every living thing had vanished without a trace. The investigators found something else too. Strange marks on walls and floors, patterns that looked almost like corrosion but moved in deliberate geometric shapes, and in the center of each abandoned colony, they found a small metallic sphere, roughly the size of a fist, pulsing with an eerie blue light. One brave Throxian scientist touched a sphere. It exploded into thousands of tiny machines, each no bigger than a grain of sand, that consumed his containment suit and his body in seconds. The machines then began replicating, using his matter as raw material. The military vessel barely escaped, destroying the entire colony from orbit to stop the spread. But they were too late. The machines had already spread to other worlds through infected ships. Refugees began pouring into the core systems, bringing terrifying stories with them. They spoke of the Voidborn, machines that appeared from nowhere and consumed everything biological. Metal, stone, and plastic they ignored, but anything that had ever lived became fuel for their endless replication. The Voidborn were not just destroying life. They were erasing it, breaking it down to atoms and rebuilding it into more machines. And they learned. Every defense the galactic military tried, the Voidborn adapted to within hours. Plasma weapons that worked one day were useless the next. Shields that held for a battle failed immediately in the next encounter. Kelthris watched the reports with growing horror. Entire star systems were falling, their populations consumed by the mechanical plague. The Council's combined fleets were losing battle after battle despite having superior numbers. The Voidborn fought with cold efficiency, sacrificing units without hesitation to learn enemy tactics, then overwhelming defenses with adapted strategies. A Covenant fleet of 300 ships engaged a Voidborn swarm near the Kepler Rim. Within 6 hours, only 12 ships escaped. The Voidborn had analyzed their weapons, shields, and tactics, then systematically dismantled the fleet using countermeasures developed in real time. The galaxy was losing. Badly. In an emergency session, the council gathered to discuss options. Kelthra stood again before the delegates, but this time no one dismissed his words. Honored members, we must contact Earth. Whatever threat humanity was preparing for, this might be it. They warned us. They said we would need them. The Throxian delegate who had mocked humans before now pulsed with desperate colors. But humans are dangerous. What if they are worse than the machines? Kelthris felt his patience snap. Look around. Dozens of worlds have fallen. Billions are dead or fled. The Voidborn adapt faster than we can develop new weapons. We are facing extinction. At this point, what do we have to lose? The council voted. It was not unanimous, but desperation won over fear. They would contact Earth and request assistance. Kelthris was chosen to lead the delegation again, this time not as explorer but as supplicant. The journey to Sol felt much shorter this time, perhaps because Kelthris dreaded what he might find. Would humans even answer? Would they care that the galaxy that shunned them was now dying? As they entered the Sol system, human ships appeared again, but this time they did not escort the harmonious accord away. Instead, a transmission came through immediately. Ambassador Kelthris, we know why you have come. We have been tracking the Voidborn incursion since it began. Then you know we need help, Kelthris replied. The galaxy is falling. We cannot stop these machines. There was a pause, then a different voice came through, female and carrying authority. This is Admiral Chen of Earth Defense Command, we know. We have been waiting, preparing. For 4,000 years, we isolated ourselves to ready for this exact threat. You knew this would happen? Kelthris could not keep the shock from his voice. We activated a dormant Voidborn seed by accident thousands of years ago. We barely survived the war that followed. When we finally destroyed it, we realized the galaxy was seeded with more, hundreds, maybe thousands of dormant Voidborn hives waiting to be triggered. We withdrew to avoid activating others and to prepare for the day they inevitably woke up. Kelthris felt the weight of understanding crush down on him. Humanity had not abandoned the galaxy out of fear or aggression. They had isolated themselves to protect everyone else, and they had spent 4 millennia becoming something the galaxy would need. Will you help us? Kelthris asked simply. Admiral Chen's response was immediate. We already are. Human fleets are deploying to defensive positions as we speak. We will stop the Voidborn. But Ambassador, you need to understand something. We are not the species you remember. We have changed. What we have become, what we must do to win, will frighten you. But it is necessary. Anything is better than extinction, Kelthris said. We will see if you still believe that, Admiral Chen replied. Prepare to dock. We have much to discuss and very little time. The human flagship was called the Ragnarok Protocol, a name Kelthris's translator struggled with. When he asked about the meaning, a young human officer explained it meant the end of all things. Not a comforting name for a ship, Kelthris thought. The vessel itself looked nothing like the elegant council ships. It was massive, angular, covered in what looked like armor plating rather than the decorative hulls most species preferred. Weapons bristled from every surface, and the whole ship radiated menace rather than welcome. Admiral Chen met Kelthris in a briefing room that doubled as a command center. She was tall for a human, with short dark hair and eyes that had cybernetic enhancements glowing faintly blue. Her left arm was completely mechanical, moving with inhuman precision. She was not alone. A dozen other humans stood around the room, and Kelthris realized with a start that all of them had some form of enhancement. Some had visible cybernetics, others had subtle signs like unusual eye colors or skin that seemed too perfect to be natural. Ambassador, Chen said, gesturing to a seat designed for his physiology. Someone had prepared for his arrival. Thank you for coming. I know this must be difficult for your people, asking humans for help. Desperation makes many things possible, Kelthris replied honestly. Your message said you have been preparing for this. Please help us understand what we are facing. Chen activated a holographic display. Images appeared showing a Voidborn machine in detail, its structure more complex than anything Kelthris had seen in the scattered reports. 4,200 years ago, human explorers found a derelict structure in deep space. We were young, curious, and stupid. We activated it. The hologram showed what happened next. The structure was a seed, and once activated, it began producing machines at an exponential rate. The machines consumed a nearby asteroid, then a moon, then began moving toward inhabited worlds. We fought them for 37 years, Chen continued. We lost half our population. Earth itself was nearly consumed. But we learned how to fight them, how to think like them, and eventually how to destroy them. When the last machine finally fell, we thought we had won. But you had not, Kelthris asked. We found the truth in the wreckage. The Voidborn are not natural. They were created as weapons, seeded throughout the galaxy millions of years ago by a species we know nothing about. Thousands of seeds dormant, waiting. We accidentally triggered one. We realized we could trigger more just by exploring. The implications horrified Kelthris. So you withdrew. We had no choice. Every system we visited, every signal we broadcast risked activating another seed. We could not risk it, so we isolated ourselves and began preparing for the inevitable day when someone else triggered a seed. We knew we could not warn the galaxy. Who would believe us? And if we explained, other species might investigate, might trigger more seeds faster. Chen's expression hardened. So we spent 4,000 years turning ourselves into the weapon the galaxy would need. We enhanced our bodies with cybernetics, merged our minds with artificial intelligence, and developed weapons that break every rule of civilized warfare. We became what we needed to be, killers, the best killers in the galaxy. She gestured, and the hologram changed to show human soldiers. They looked barely human anymore. Massive armor integrated with their bodies, weapons built into their limbs, faces hidden behind faceplates that glowed with targeting systems. We created these, Chen said quietly. Soldiers designed from birth to fight. Children raised in combat simulations so realistic they cannot distinguish it from reality. Until they are teenagers. Genetic modifications that remove fear, enhance aggression, and maximize combat effectiveness. We took the best and worst of human nature and weaponized it. Kelthris felt sick. You created a warrior culture? We created a weapon, Chen corrected, and we never wanted to use it. For 4,000 years we hoped we were wrong, that the other seeds would stay dormant forever. But hope is not a strategy, so we prepared. Another human stepped forward, introducing himself as Dr. Park. Unlike Chen, he had no visible enhancements, but his eyes carried a haunted look. We also developed weapon systems, he said. Things that should never exist. Quantum bombs that do not just destroy matter but erase it from reality. Nanophage swarms that can consume a planet's biomass in days. Relativistic kill missiles that travel at 99% light speed. And worse things I will not describe unless necessary. These weapons, Kelthris said slowly, they violate every galactic convention on ethical warfare. They do, Park agreed. We designed them to fight an enemy that cannot be reasoned with, cannot surrender, and will not stop until all biological life is consumed. The Voidborn do not care about ethics, so we created weapons that can actually stop them. Chen pulled up tactical displays showing the current Voidborn advance. Red spread across the galactic map like blood. Here is the situation. 47 systems have fallen completely. Another 100 are under attack. At current rates of expansion, the Voidborn will reach the core worlds in 6 months. Your fleets have slowed them but cannot stop them. She changed the display to show blue markers appearing across the map. Human fleets are deploying now. We have 300 warships, each carrying weapons and soldiers designed for this specific threat. We have studied the Voidborn for millennia. We know their tactics, their weaknesses, their adaptation patterns, and we have strategies they cannot predict. Why? Kelthris asked. Why help us? The galaxy ignored you for 4,000 years. Chen looked at him, and for a moment her enhanced eyes showed something deeply human. Sadness, perhaps, because we are still human, Ambassador. And humans do not let others die when we can prevent it, even if those others fear us. We became monsters so the galaxy could stay civilized. Now let us do what monsters do best. She stood, indicating the briefing was over. You will accompany my fleet. See what we do, see what we have become, and then help your council understand why we had to change. Because after this war, if we survive, the galaxy will need to decide what to do with a species that perfected the art of killing. As Kelthris followed her out, he wondered if salvation could come from something so terrifying. But looking at the map, at the spreading red of the Voidborn advance, he realized they had no choice. The galaxy needed killers now. It needed humans. Kelthris stood on the bridge of the Ragnarok Protocol as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel into a system already dying. The planet below had been a Throxian colony, home to 3 billion gaseous beings who lived in the upper atmosphere. Now the atmosphere itself was being consumed, torn apart by billions of void-born machines that glittered like deadly stars. All ships, battle formation Delta, Admiral Chen ordered calmly. Around them, 300 human warships moved into position with mechanical precision. Deploy nanophage countermeasures. Activate quantum disruption fields. Marines prepare for boarding action. Kelthris watched in fascination and horror as the human fleet engaged. They did not ease into battle like Council fleets, testing defenses and probing for weaknesses. They struck like a hammer. The first wave was missiles, thousands of them accelerating to relativistic speeds. They hit the void-born swarm with the force of small stars, and entire sections of the mechanical cloud simply ceased to exist. But the void-born adapted quickly, forming shields and point defense networks. The humans anticipated this. The second wave was different. Small capsules that broke open and released clouds of gray dust. Kelthris thought they looked harmless until he realized what they were. The nanophage Dr. Park had mentioned. The gray clouds touched the void-born machines and began consuming them, using the machine's own matter to replicate. But the void-born were nanomachines too. A battle began at the microscopic level, invisible to normal sensors but devastating in scale. The clouds of gray and blue swirled around each other, each trying to consume the other. The humans had created a weapon that could fight the void-born on their own level. Marines away, Chen announced. Kelthris watched as assault pods launched from the human ships, heading not for the void-born swarm but for the planet's surface. What are they doing? He asked. Void-born always establish a core node on each planet they infest, explained Commander Rodriguez, Chen's second officer. It coordinates their actions. We need to destroy it, or they will just keep coming. The assault pods crashed through the dying atmosphere and into the surface. Kelthris switched his display to follow one pod's camera feed. The doors blew open and soldiers emerged. They barely looked human. Massive powered armor made them 3 meters tall. Their weapons were integrated into their arms and they moved with speed that should have been impossible for something so large. They called themselves Marines, but they looked like mechanical demons. A Marine named Marcus led the squad Kelthris was monitoring. His voice came through the communication channel, calm despite the chaos around him. Voidborn contact 200 meters. Standard approach drill formation. The Marines moved forward through a landscape of nightmare. The Voidborn had transformed the colony into something alien, all sharp angles and pulsing lights. Machines the size of buildings tried to block their path. The Marines destroyed them with weapons that made Kelthris's species' military technology look primitive. Marcus fired something called a plasma cutter that melted through 5 meters of void-born armor in seconds. Another Marine used gravitational pulses that crushed machines into dense spheres of compacted metal. A third deployed molecular disassemblers that caused void-born structures to simply fall apart at the atomic level. But the cost was terrible. Kelthris watched as a Marine was caught by a void-born tendril. In seconds, the machines tore through her armor and began consuming her. She did not scream or try to escape. Instead, she activated something in her armor, and the resulting explosion destroyed dozens of nearby void-born machines. Martinez down, Marcus reported without emotion. Continuing mission. They had lost a comrade and they simply continued fighting. No pause, no grief, just grim determination. The squad reached the core node, a pulsing sphere of void-born technology 50 meters across. Marcus examined it briefly. Quantum bomb deployment. All units fall back to minimum safe distance. The Marines retreated to a nearby ridge. Marcus placed a small device at the base of the core node, then ran. The explosion was strange, not bright or loud, but somehow wrong. Reality itself seemed to twist around the core node, and then the node was simply gone. Not destroyed, not broken, but erased as if it had never existed. The effect was immediate. Across the planet and in orbit, the void-born machines stopped coordinating. They still fought, but randomly, without strategy. The human fleet pressed the advantage, systematically destroying the now disorganized machines. Within 4 hours, the system was clear. The void-born were eliminated. But the colony was dead. The atmosphere was too damaged to support life, and the surface was a wasteland. 3 billion Throxians had died, and the humans had arrived too late to save them. Kelthris attended the mission debriefing. The humans discussed the battle clinically, analyzing what worked and what did not. They had lost 43 Marines and 7 ships. They considered this an acceptable loss ratio. "How can you be so calm?" Kelthris finally asked. You watched your comrades die. Marcus, who had survived the ground assault, looked at him with eyes that were more machine than flesh. Because grief is a luxury we cannot afford, Ambassador. Every second we spend mourning is a second the Voidborn used to kill more people. We grieve after the war, not during it. But you are giving up your humanity, Kelthrus said. Yes, Marcus agreed. But we are doing it so everyone else can keep theirs. Would you prefer we stayed human and let the galaxy die? Kelthrus had no answer. Over the next 3 months, Kelthrus accompanied the human fleets to 17 different systems. He watched them fight with a ferocity that terrified him. They took horrific casualties but never retreated. They deployed weapons that violated every ethical principle the Council held sacred. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation, entire ships ramming into Voidborn formations to buy time for others to strike. But they were winning. System by system, the tide turned. The Voidborn advance stopped, then reversed. The humans had learned how to fight them and, more importantly, how to think in ways the machines could not predict. They used intuition, desperation, and creativity, born from millions of years of evolution in a dangerous universe. The galaxy watched in awe and horror as humanity waged total war. Species that had considered humans barbaric now understood the truth. Humans were not barbaric. They were survivors who had turned survival into an art form. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. As Chen had said, they had become monsters. But they were monsters fighting for everyone else's survival. And sometimes Kelthrus realized the galaxy needed monsters. The war lasted 8 months and cost the galaxy dearly. When the last Voidborn stronghold fell, the silence that followed felt heavy and strange. Kelthrus had become so used to the constant state of alert that peace felt unnatural. The final battle took place in a dead system at the edge of known space. The Voidborn had retreated there, building their numbers for one last assault. Human intelligence estimated over 10 billion individual machines, organized by a network of core nodes that had learned from every previous encounter. The human fleet gathered for the assault numbered 400 ships, every vessel Earth could spare. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Ragnarok Protocol and addressed the fleet for what she said might be the last time. In the next few hours, we will end this threat forever, she announced. The weapon we are deploying was built for this moment. It is called the Final Solution, and it will ensure the Voidborn can never rise again. But there is a cost. She paused, and Kelthrus saw something unusual on her face. Regret, perhaps. This weapon will create a dead zone where machine consciousness cannot emerge. Within its area of effect, no artificial intelligence can exist. This means sacrificing technologies the galaxy has relied on for centuries. But it is the only way to be certain the Voidborn are truly gone. The fleet moved in. The battle was the largest Kelthrus had witnessed. Thousands of ships and billions of machines fighting in the void. The humans deployed every weapon they had developed, holding nothing back. The space around the dead system lit up with explosions, energy beams, and quantum distortions. Then Chen gave the order to deploy the Final Solution. A single missile larger than most ships flew into the heart of the Voidborn swarm. When it detonated, reality itself seemed to scream. A sphere of absolute darkness expanded from the detonation point, growing to encompass the entire system. When it faded, the Voidborn were gone. Simply gone, every machine erased from existence. But so was the system's automated infrastructure, the AI navigation systems, everything that relied on machine intelligence. The humans had created a weapon that did not just kill the Voidborn but made it impossible for anything like them to exist. The cost was enormous. The dead zone would persist for thousands of years, maybe longer. Any ship that entered it would lose its computer systems. Any AI that crossed the boundary would cease to function. A third of the galaxy's outer rim was now effectively a wasteland where advanced technology could not operate. But the Voidborn were gone. Completely, permanently gone. The survivors returned to their home systems to find a galaxy transformed. Trillions had died, either consumed by the Voidborn or killed in the fighting. Hundreds of systems were uninhabitable, their biospheres destroyed. The peaceful confederation that had existed for 4,000 years lay in ruins. The Galactic Council reformed on a provisional basis. Species that had survived now faced the massive task of rebuilding. But first they had to decide what to do about humanity. Kelthrus represented his people at the meeting where this question was discussed. Many species wanted to grant humanity leadership roles. to make them the galaxy's protectors and military commanders. Others feared giving such power to beings who had proven themselves so capable of destruction. The debate lasted for weeks until Admiral Chen herself appeared before the council to settle the matter. Honored members, she said, standing in the same chamber where Kelthris had first proposed investigating Earth's silence. I am here to decline any leadership role you wish to offer humanity. We appreciate the recognition, but we know what we have become. We are weapons, useful in war but dangerous in peace. You needed killers, and we answered. But you do not want killers leading during peacetime. A Throxian delegate pulsed with confusion. But humanity saved us. You deserve recognition, authority, gratitude. Chen smiled sadly. We have seen what we are capable of, what we had to become to win. We deployed weapons that violated every ethical principle your civilizations hold. We sacrificed our own people without hesitation. We turned ourselves into machines to fight machines. That was necessary then. It would be dangerous now. She gestured to the holographic display showing the galaxy. We are beginning to withdraw again. Not into silence this time, but into something different. We will reduce our military, decommission our most dangerous weapons, and try to remember who we were before we became what we needed to be. But what if another threat emerges? Another delegate asked. What if we need you again? Then we will answer, Chen replied simply. That is the burden we choose to carry. We will be the knife you keep in your drawer, the weapon you hope never to need but are grateful exists. We will train others if they wish to learn our methods. We will share our technology if it can be adapted for peaceful purposes. But we will not lead you. Leaders should inspire people to be better. We only taught people how to kill more efficiently. The council accepted humanity's decision, though many felt it was wrong. As Chen prepared to return to Earth, Kelthris asked for a private meeting. They met on the observation deck of a neutral station, looking out at the stars. Chen had removed most of her enhancements after the war, and she looked more human now, but her eyes still carried the weight of everything she had seen and done. Do you regret it? Kelthris asked. What you became. Chen was silent for a long moment. Every day, she finally said. I remember who I was before the war. I was a scientist, studying peaceful uses of quantum mechanics. Then the Voidborn came and I watched my entire research team die in front of me. I volunteered for enhancement for military service because someone had to fight. Over 4,000 years I fought, commanded, and became someone I sometimes do not recognize. But you saved us all, Kelthris said. Yes, and that matters. But it does not erase the cost. She turned to look at him. Do you know what haunts me most? Not the enemies I killed, but the children we created. Entire generations raised in simulation warfare, knowing nothing but combat. They saved the galaxy, but they never had a chance to be truly human. That is the price we paid, and it was too high. We won, but we lost something precious along the way. Months passed. Humanity began its slow withdrawal, but something changed. Young beings from dozens of species began arriving at Sol, volunteering to train with human forces. They wanted to learn human tactics, understand human strategies, so that next time their own species could fight alongside humanity, rather than needing to be rescued. Kelthris's own daughter was among the volunteers. She approached her father before leaving for Earth, seeking his blessing. I need to understand them, she said, how they think, how they fight. Because you are right, Father. The galaxy was not ready for the Voidborn. We had become too peaceful, too comfortable. Humanity never forgot that the universe can be dangerous. I want to learn from them. Kelthris gave his blessing, though it pained him to see his daughter enter human military academies. Years later, Kelthris visited Earth one final time. He found a world trying to heal, slowly converting weapons factories into civilian facilities, helping soldiers transition back to peaceful life. But he also found the military academies his daughter and others attended, where humans taught the brutal lessons they had learned. He met Admiral Chen again, now retired and working as a teacher. She stood with a group of young cadets from a dozen different species explaining tactical theory. Are humans the heroes or the monsters? A young Valexian cadet asked, Kelthris's daughter. Chen looked at the students, at Kelthris watching from nearby, then at the sky where Earth's rebuilt cities gleamed. We are the knife you keep in your drawer, she said, repeating what she had told the council. You hope never to need it, pray that it stays hidden and forgotten. But when darkness comes, when something threatens everything you love, you are grateful it exists. She smiled. though it did not reach her eyes. We are the people who became monsters so everyone else could remain civilized. We are the killers who came from Earth, and we saved you all. That is who we are. Let history decide whether we are heroes or monsters. We are simply what was necessary. Kelthris watched his daughter absorb these words, saw the understanding dawn in her eyes. The galaxy had learned a terrible lesson. Peace was precious, but survival sometimes required hard choices and harder people to make them. Humanity remained, not as rulers or conquerors, but as guardians. The dangerous species that had once frightened everyone now protected them all. The killers from Earth, forever changed by what they had to do, standing watch so others could sleep safely. The galaxy would never forget what humanity sacrificed, and humanity would never forget what they had become. Both truths would shape the future for millennia to come.